Welcome to the third session of this course on football analysis. I am Nacho Ferrer. Today I'm going to share with you my methodology when I am watching a game and I am not engaged with any of the teams and I am just trying to understand what is happening on the field and also trying to learn from what the teams are doing. I always begin with a preliminary analysis, which is going to require more or less time depending on the previous information that I have. In this preliminary analysis, I try to understand the basic structure of each one of the teams. And that means the initial formation, but also the basic general movements of the players on the field. In parallel to this understanding of the basic structures of the teams, I also try always to see what the teams are doing in their transitions. If they are being very quick, when they win the ball back, they attack the spaces. When they lose it, they try to win it back as soon as possible, or they try to slow down the pace of the game. When they lose the ball, they try to reorganize and forget about the ball. And when they win the ball back, they try to keep possession and not be so active looking for the spaces. This is going to give us a general perception of the pace of the game. And the third part of this preliminary analysis, but don't forget that it's all at the same time, is understanding what the main scenarios of this game are. Because depending on that, it's going to give us the kind of game that we are watching. For example, if the 50-50 scenario is the most common one, that means that both teams are not taking any risks. They are playing long, they are trying to win those 50-50 balls and play from there. Now, if we have a sustained threat scenario, mainly from one team, a defensive block, organized defensive block from the other, and then a counter-attack scenario in open spaces, and that is more or less what is happening during the first part of the game that I'm watching, that is going to give us the kind of game that we are watching at that time. This preliminary analysis can be the base for a further analysis in which we're going to go more in depth, or can be the basic analysis for a game in which we are not going to spend much time. We are going to have, therefore, the basic structures of the teams and also the general movements of the players, also their management of the transitions and of the open spaces, and the main scenarios which are taking part in the game, and therefore the kind of game that we are watching. But obviously, we want to go in depth. So what are we going to do in this analysis in depth? The first thing that I normally do is I take the structures of both teams in the different scenarios of the game also, and I match them to see what happens. So from here, we're going to have where the numerical superiorities can happen more often. Then the different scenarios of the game, but only the most important ones in this game. And we are going to analyze them more in depth. Now is when we have to go back to the second part of the course in which we talked about general football concepts, because the spaces and also the way that the teams are going to try to create superiorities are going to be very important in this analysis of the scenarios. So we're going to look for main patterns in these scenarios, and that implies not only collective movements or collective actions, that also implies individuals, what the individuals are doing and how relevant they are in a positive manner, but also in a negative manner, and how they are affecting their teams. Remember, important, the pace of everything, all the patterns that we are analyzing, what is the pace of those behaviors. And if we think about it, both teams in a game cannot be successful at the same time. So normally one is going to be better than the other. And that can imply that one team is not going to be able to show what they had planned in advance. So are we able to see those intentions different to what they are showing in the reality? That is another very interesting point in our analysis. And going forward, so when we're watching a game, let's say 20 minutes to go in the first half, and we are watching different patterns in the game, different scenarios, can we project what is going to happen in the next minutes and in the rest of the game? Can we, from that starting point, from that initial analysis, do a projection in the future of what's going to happen? That is going to be a very good exercise for our football capacity. This tactical analysis process is just the beginning. because there will be turning points during the game. So the first thing, we have to be ready to see those turning points sooner rather than later. And then we need to also have the capacity to reassess our evaluation and our analysis of the game, see what has changed, and also how it's going to affect to the projection that we had done about what is going to happen in the game. And finally, the conclusions. Once the game is over, we will have the big picture of the game in mind, and we will be able to do either what we can call a partial conclusion analysis or a code analysis, which is going to be not connected directly with the score, but just trying to analyze what happened in the different scenarios of the game. And another kind of analysis could be directly connected to the score, and we would try to explain the score from what we saw on the different scenarios of the game. So the analysis of a game of football can be very complex and very comprehensive. I try to make it simple for myself, and this is what I'm bringing you in this course. The first thing that I normally do is trying to see the basic structures of the teams, understand their general movements. Sometimes I already know this because I have the information in advance, but if not, this is the first thing to do. In parallel, we're going to see how the different teams are managing their transitions and their attack of the open spaces, and also what the main scenarios of the game are in this specific match. The second part, which is going to be an analysis more in depth, we're going to match the structures of the teams depending on the scenarios of the game, and this is going to give us where the numerical superiorities are more likely to happen. Then again, numerical superiorities, but any kind of superiority, positional, quality superiority, collective, individual, any kind of pattern that we can identify in the different scenarios of the game, we are going to focus on the main scenarios of this specific game. Also the pace and also the spaces that the teams are occupying. There is going to be an important guessing component in this analysis in depth. For we're going to try to guess the intentions of the teams, even when the reality is not showing those patterns. And we are also going to try to project in the future what is going to happen in function of what we are currently seeing. And this analysis, we will need to do it per every turning point we detect on the game. And one of the most difficult things can be being aware of those turning points. That is the first and most difficult thing. And the conclusions, and we can link them directly to the score and explain the outcome of the match depending on what we saw on the game, or we can just analyze the different scenarios regardless the connection to the score. Let's put all this in practice in an exercise. We will use around 20 minutes of this under 13 game as an example. Firstly, please watch the footage on your own and try to carry out a preliminary analysis followed by an analysis in depth, just for this short part of the game. After that, I will share with you my own thoughts. Here's a diagram with the jersey numbers of the players per positions. This way you won't start your analysis from scratch. I have also included something which is very important to me, and it is what players are left-footed, since this will be relevant in order to have a better understanding of the movements and behaviors of certain players. These left-footed players are identified because their circle is in yellow.
Glúteos, todos glúteos. la otra pierna, gemelos. Vale, hemos terminado, ayúdame con el material. Vale, señores, por favor, material. Ah, y botellas de agua, ninguna aquí fuera. La botella de agua, ¿hemos bebido agua? ¿Hemos bebido agua? Vale, buena idea. Muy bien.
Here is my sample analysis of this video clip. The preliminary analysis would include a basic structure with a diamond 1-4-4-2 in the case of the white team and a 1-4-3-3 in the red team. In the case of the white team, the side midfielders start wide open, but they come inside very often, leaving the outer spaces for the fullbacks. Both teams try to keep possession when they win the ball back in their own half, especially the red team, while the white team is very active to explore the counter-attack options if there is a turnover closer to the opposition's goal. When they lose the ball, both press very quickly to try to win it back as soon as possible. The main scenario of this game is a building up context from the team in red versus a defense of that building up scenario from the squad in white. Also, there exists quite often a sustained threat situation from the white team versus an organized defensive block from the squad in red. Additionally, we should mention several situations of defensive reorganization by the red team against a white team trying to take advantage of that defensive disorganization. Transitions are also very relevant to understand this game. In other words, we are watching a game in which the white team is taking the lead, mainly through a successful high pressing with subsequent counterattacks, but also through sustained threat scenarios. We will go over the analysis in depth, presenting it through the final conclusions. Firstly, the conclusions which are not directly linked to the score. Depending in our analysis regarding the structures, the red team turns into a 1-4-4-2 in the BPO2 scenario, with the number 10 and sometimes the number 8 getting higher on the field and joining number 9 in the high pressing, when the white left center back gets the ball. In addition, the red team moves into a 1-4-5-1 structure when they are sitting in a lower defensive block. In the white team, it becomes more a 6-6-1-4-4-2 when they are in possession, and with the two side midfielders coming inside and the fullbacks going higher. It could be described as a sort of 1-2-4-2-2 or even a 1-2-4-3-1 when one of the strikers drops to overload even more the midfield. Because there is only the fullbacks of the team in white occupying the sides, and because the attacking white side midfielders draw the red fullbacks inside sometimes, there are gaps in these side areas, and both strikers tend to move to the sides very often when in possession. For this reason, many times the white team gathers 3 or 4 players in the same side, quite close to the ball. Lastly, the squad in white shows the mentioned diamond 1-4-4-2 when pressing high. When we match both structures, we see that the team in white has got more numbers in the inner midfield during their BP phase due to that sort of 1-2-4-2-2 structure that we have mentioned. This also implies that the team in white leaves little numbers behind their ball in their BP8 scenario. The team in red has a more traditional structure with 2 players in each of the sides. This allows them to keep players open during their BP phase and switch the ball against a narrow structure from the white team. Because the white team is able to create and finish a number of chances, and because the team in red keeps possession very often when they win the ball back, recycling, we see these scenarios happening over and over. The team in white is pressing with 2 strikers over the 2 center backs in red, and from there they apply the diamond shape of the midfield when the ball goes one side, matching each one of the potential receptors from the red team. A couple of players in red are left unmarked in the opposite side of the field. The white team is very aggressive in the pressing, very high and with a high intensity. They leave open spaces at their back and in the opposite side. Although in occasions the team in red is able to keep possession for long periods of time, the white team ends up dispossessing them quite often. Also, when the team in red decides to play long, the squad in white normally takes control of the situation, winning back the final ball and resuming their attack phase. In summary, the white team is quite successful winning the ball back in the opposition's half. Therefore, we need to mention some short distance counterattacks by their side. In these occasions, if they win the ball back close to the opposition's goal, they are quite direct, but they find little spaces since the offensive balance of the red team is quite good and they get reorganized very quickly. When the team in red is able to break away the opposition's high pressing, unless a couple of very relevant exceptions that we will mention later, they lack speed to attack the open spaces quickly and effectively enough. The team in red gets reorganized and moves very quickly from a higher into a medium or low block, changing the shape from a 1-4-4-2 into a 1-4-5-1. They are not very effective in the BPO2 scenario, and they get reorganized well and quickly. That is why we see this medium-low organized defensive block very often. The red squad protects quite well their back space and covers a wide space in the midfield, but allows the opposition at the same time to find some inner spaces. As we saw, the white team outnumbers the red squad in the inner midfield, and the red team finds trouble to defend the players that come to occupy the inner spaces. Talking about the white team, their main patterns during the organized BP scenarios consist on providing width with the fullbacks and occupy the inner spaces either with the side midfielders or with the strikers. The center backs are able to find those inner passes splitting lines, but until they find this moment to play inside, they play outside the opposition's defensive block. Those outside spaces are important. They move the ball from one side to the other, and when the fullbacks find spaces to move forward, they do so. Both fullbacks are players with capacity to attack those spaces very quickly, and they show a certain level of individual quality superiority to overpass the defenders of the team in red, perhaps based on their physical skills. Transitions are very relevant in this game. We have mentioned before that the squad in red lacks speed and physical capacity to attack the open spaces. Furthermore, and mainly, their main behavior tends to be keeping possession when they win the ball back as a part of their identity. In addition, the white team is quite successful winning the ball back very quickly. This dynamic reinforces the main two scenarios of the game, BP2 from the red team's side and BP3 from the white team's side. All the above is the reflection about the main patterns of the teams, regardless the score. Now, taking this into consideration, we need to talk about some more scenarios. First of all, the finishing scenario for the white team, since due to the success of their high pressing and management of sustained threats and transitions, they were able to create a number of chances, including a number of dead ball situations, but they only scored once. One of the main behaviors that calls our attention and that could be fixed is that most of the crosses coming from the left-hand side are aimed to the far post, and normally there's nobody in that area ready to finish. On the contrary, the red team shows great efficiency in the few chances that they have. Two more scenarios are quite important, for they are very relevant to understand the score. Firstly, the BP8 scenario of the white team. We can only guess it because we cannot see the full field, but the numbers show that they leave the two center backs against the striker in red, 2v1 situation, plus the goalkeeper. In theory, the white team is leaving behind the ball one or two holding midfielders too. These are the numbers. Also, as mentioned, the white team is very aggressive when defending. They take risks defending forwards. All this risk brings a very positive outcome normally, but when they fail, it doesn't happen very often, but it happens sometimes. When they fail, they get very exposed. Although the attacks in open spaces from the red team seldom happen because they recycle the ball or because such attacks are prevented by the white team in early stages, when these attacks in open spaces happen, apart from those numerical and positional issues, the two center backs in white do not seem to be managing the spaces and the situation properly, and they are beaten by the number 9 in red, who is fast, and also by the number 8 coming from the second line. Also, we can see that the functioning and the coordination of the defensive structure in general leaves gaps for the players in red to attack such open spaces. The team in white is taking much risk in their approach. A general analysis would say that they are successful and they are controlling the game. But when they fail, they get very exposed, and this has a significant impact in the score, in addition to the fact that they have struggled to turn their chances into goals. Although there might be a slight reaction from the red team, the first goal of the match doesn't seem to change much in the game, since the white team keeps the play under control afterwards. We haven't got much information after the equalizer, but somehow the dynamic of the game is changing, since the defensive line of the white team is starting to feel vulnerable at their back. At this point of the game, we could guess that although the team in white seems to be able to keep the game under control in the same manner, their back might become more and more vulnerable, and this might open a door for the team in red to find their opportunity factor in the game. This is all for the third session of the course. In the fifth one, we're going to talk about the analysis of our next opponent, and we will see how different it is in comparison with this one. But before that, we're going to go over the football numbers, which in my opinion are more relevant to the game. Thank you.